Awesome. Honored to have you. Honored to have you on today. Soprano fans know you as Gismonte. You were also in Ray Donovan. Analyze that. The Daredevil TV series, and you also play Enzo in the younger TV series. Chris, I know you don't need a big introduction, but I just want to thank you for joining today.
Oh, my pleasure. Again, thank you for having me.
I'm dying to jump right into the Sopranos, but I honestly want to just kickstart it with how it all started for you and what made you want to get into the business.
Okay. Well, the truth is, I didn't really grow up wanting to be an actor, but when I was in my early 20s, I was in a line of work that I came across another actor who you might know. His name is Andy DeVoli, very talented actor. And, we became friends. And at that point, I had written a screenplay, which he read. And then he said, "Hey, man, you should meet my acting teacher." And I went and I met his acting teacher, whose name was Greg Zittel. And he became like my mentor. I studied with him for about 4 or 5 years before I even auditioned. And my first audition was The Sopranos, and I have the beginner's luck.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was that beginner's luck, or do you think it was the years of prep which kind of led you to that?
I mean, I would like to say it was the years of prep, but the truth is, I think I was very close to who that character was at that time in my life. Yeah. So, it wasn't all that much of a stretch. Sorry, New York.
No worries, no worries. Because when you joined the cast, I mean, that was season 2. So if season 1 was already underway, did you at all audition for season 1, or was season 2 kind of your first?
I did not. No, season 2 was my first audition. To be quite honest, I wasn't really all that aware of the show at that point, because we had heard about the first season, that it was really good. Yeah. But just where I was in my life at that time, I didn't watch television, because you have to remember, back then, I think, what did you have? The Wire, Oz, and The Sopranos, right? Those are really the television shows that people kind of got into. I didn't watch anything on the major networks. So, I didn't even see it. But then once I got the part, I went and watched, the first season.
Did you have to audition in front of David Chase, or kind of what was that audition process like?
Oh, sure. Yeah. From what I remember, I went in first with Georgianne Walken and Shira Jaffe, who was her partner. And right away at that audition, they was like, they were like, "Oh man, where were you? Where have you been?" That kind of thing, which is great. Feels good. And then I went back to a couple of callbacks that was populated with a whole bunch of actors who today, who were just getting started then and who went on to become very successful, and other guys who were very good but just never got the breaks, and never, made it into public awareness. But I did do a callback in which they were mixing and matching guys for those 2 roles, the roles that Lilo and I played. And I do remember me and Lilo ending up together and, auditioning together, and, in front of David Chase and the other producers. And I'm sure at that point, though I don't remember, but I'm sure HBO executives were there. Back then screen testing was, you'd go in a room with everybody and, audition in front of 20, 30 people. Although it wasn't a screen test, it was just a callback audition, but directors, producers, creator in the room.
Yeah. I mean, you guys had so much chemistry. I mean, the Matt Bevilacqua, the Giz character, you guys had so much chemistry together, and it sort of seemed like you guys were kind of on the rise, or at least in your guys' minds. But you guys were always getting in these, rough fight scenes with Tony and Silvio, and that scene in the bathroom. I mean, I think that was the one that kind of set it for you guys. Once you guys kind of got punked by Tony, there were a lot of intense scenes with the late James Gandolfini. What was it like working with him?
Oh man, it was great. Back then my awareness of James was primarily from True Romance and Get Shorty. And I wasn't sure if he did 8mm yet, that film with Joaquin Phoenix. I wasn't sure if he had done that. And I saw him in a couple of other smaller roles. Yeah. But after having watched that season before I went into work, it's like, here's the guy, you know what I mean? And we had a lot of respect for him. So it was great. It was really, you know, a learning experience. You see how he works, and you know, you for me, it was my first time being on a set. Not that scene specifically, but you know, that was the first time I actually worked with him. So, you know, it's like you just kind of the newbie standing there watching these guys and what they do, and it was great. And he was a sweetheart, you know.
Are there any funny stories that you can remember from the set, or just something that you kind of still carry with you to this day?
Not funny stories, but I remember, you know, one day we were at Silver Cup Studios and we were shooting inside. It was a beautiful day. And I'd come out, I was sitting on a bench, and James came out. And, you know, just like to get a breath of fresh air. He's probably shooting how many scenes that day? I only had one scene. And he sat down on the bench and just started to inquire about me and my path, and, you know, where I was from, and, you know, where I studied, all that. And we just had like a heart to heart kind of talk. And, you know, I'll carry that with me because, again, when you're young, like, I'm not someone who's starstruck often. As a matter of fact, not really. But I'll tell you who I get starstruck by. I was working in a restaurant called Moomba in the 90s, which was like the hot spot in New York. And Jimmy Page and Robert Plant walked in.
Wow. Wow.
And I was like, that's starstruck, you know?
Yeah.
But this is something different. It's like, you know, it's someone you revere, and you know, you're having this conversation with them, and as you're having this conversation, you're also aware enough to be like, holy shit, I'm like sitting here talking to James Gandolfini, you know? So I'll carry that with me.
That's amazing. I mean, everyone that you hear just from interviews, I mean, they say that he was so much different from the character of Tony. So yeah, just you know, everyone was touched by James in a different way. So yeah, it was just amazing to kind of hear all these stories, and because you always want to know kind of what the man was like, because he did very few interviews. So just to kind of hear him, you know, come to life, just from, you know, co-stars and folks like you guys, man, it's unbelievable, and just kind of reassures how good of a man he was.
Yeah, he was a regular guy, you know, and he was a talented actor who was in the trenches, and then he got that. And I would imagine that no one anticipated the success of that show and what it would do for all of them, you know.
And you worked with Michael Imperioli, you know, Christopher, in quite a bit of scenes, and it's your character that puts him in a coma. Now, if your character had actually killed him, even though he shoots you and you die soon after, but if your character had killed him, the show would have been completely different.
Completely different. Yes. Yes. He's a great guy.
There. No, awesome. So no, that's great. And you snuck up on us in Ray Donovan. I know the show moved from LA to New York, and you know, right when I saw you in there, I was like, oh man, here he is. And your character was kind of unique because, like, you know, there were, you know, these crooked cops, but like your character seemed like he was just kind of getting by and kind of doing his job. And you had a very brutal death scene, and I honestly I felt bad for you when that happened. They were just torturing you. But yeah, what was it like joining that cast? I mean, I love Ray Donovan.
Well, Ray Donovan connects to Sopranos for me because I went in for the initial audition for Ray Donovan, and the callback. I walk into the room, and who's the director but Alan Coulter, who directed me in Sopranos.
There you go.
And he directed the first 2 episodes of that season of Ray Donovan. So I would venture to believe that's the reason I got the part.
Yeah.
You know, but it was fantastic. I mean, Liev is a great talent, and going back to the 90s again, being in New York, or the late 90s, early 2000s, he was doing Broadway, and, you know, you look up to these guys, and, you know, you want the career that they have, you know what I mean? So to actually be working with and among them it's kind of thrilling, you know?
And let's not forget about John Voight. I mean, you had a couple scenes with him.
He was the best. I mean, and as a human being, just a lovely man, you know, like very amicable, like to talk and chat in between scenes. And he was that's a highlight, you know, because I'm a huge fan of his films, you know, Midnight Cowboy, and the list goes on. But yeah, so that was definitely a highlight.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like, I mean, the way they had you out, on the field kind of looked like a mob hit in the making. And was that really him that was punching you, or was that a stunt double?
No,
'Cause he was on his
that
knees
was him.
now.
I'll tell you a funny story. He actually punched me. So the scene in the bar. This is funny. So the scene in the bar when he sucker punches me and I fall off the stool, as I'm getting up off the ground, he throws another punch.
Wow.
Well, twice in the filming of that, he actually planted a punch right on my face. And in the first time he did it, they carried the take through when they dragged me out of the bar, and he comes running up to me and he goes, "Oh man," he's like, I got you that time. You all right?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about it." And then he goes, "Yeah, sure. See, when you're 80 years old, you got nothing left in your punch." It was very funny. I mean, I don't know if he's 80. I forget how old he is, but you know, it was very endearing and a lot of fun.
No, that was just amazing. I mean, the final scene with you where Smitty, kills you, but you don't know who to feel bad for you or Smitty. Smitty's like, "Really sorry this had to happen. Like, I hope you're okay." And it's like, you're dying. And I think that was maybe his first murder on the show. I think he buried somebody before, but that was his first hit. But no, just a crazy ending to your character. And I was pumped to see you on. I was like, man, this is great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it was, again, working with all those guys, Dash, and I mean, I didn't have scenes with them, but just seeing them around and talking to them, it's great. It's great when you're working on shows like that are good, and it's kind of why you do it. You know what I mean? So I've been very fortunate in that regard to The Sopranos and that. You know what I mean?
There's talks of a Ray Donovan movie coming out, or at least a final season. Have you heard any word of that? Do you think maybe they'll bring your character back from the dead?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it's the kind of genre where you come back from the dead. But I haven't really heard anything about it. I heard a blurb about it, but yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Speaking of new films, the Many Saints in Newark just came out. I'll be honest, I've already seen it 4 times, and for me,
Oh, wow.
each time that I've seen, because the first time you watch something that you've been waiting for, you miss things, you're kind of on a high. But it got better for me after each time seeing it. Have you had a chance to see it yet?
I did see it. Yes.
Awesome. I'd love to hear your take.
I thought Alessandro Nivola and is it Michael Gandolfini?
Yeah.
I thought they were fantastic. I thought they did great. It's his son, but he recalls James Gandolfini so much in many of his behaviors. And I really liked Alessandro's performance as well. I mean, on Instagram, I've seen criticisms of that film and things people say. They have no idea first of all, the creators are locked into the backstory that they created throughout however many seasons the show was. So there's a limitation, right? Because now they've created this mythos of the world that happened before the story in the series. So they're locked into that, right? So within that framework, they have to create a story. And some people were disappointed. They felt like, they didn't like the storyline. They didn't like this or that. But I really liked it. And I felt, he was morally conflicted. But in the end, look, you reap what you sow, right? Like, people were offended being Italian Americans in the way Italian Americans are portrayed. But it's not a movie about Leonardo da Vinci where they have him in a rope chain acting like a Gavone, right? It's a movie about criminals. They're criminals and they're anti-heroes. And, that's the world that they're in. And unfortunately, that is part of Italian culture. It's certainly not the bright, shining side of it. Italians have contributed a lot to the world, but, they're best known, especially here, for mafia. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I really liked it. It was a very talented cast. I had no problems with it.
Yeah, what I really appreciated, and I was only able to capture this after rewatching it a few times, is the consistency of the characters in the film and how they were on the show. Like the actions that they did, you're like, okay, now I understand why they did that. And I don't want to give too many spoilers to kind of the ending and kind of how that happened, but I just feel like there was the thing that I appreciated the most was the consistency of the characters. And I don't know if you saw, but it looks like David Chase just got a 5-year deal for both film and series. So it looks like we may be getting some more Sopranos on the horizon.
Oh wow, really? What, like the prequel, a series about the prequel?
So it's a 5-year deal. It said both TV and series treatment. So again, it's just what I read online. I don't know exactly how true it is, but I saw it from a few different sources. And I also read that David Chase said that he'd like to bring on Terrence Winter, and Terrence Winter said that he'd be more than excited to join. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah, Terry's great. I would love it if they did that. My only, I would only be sad that Alessandro Nivola. Oh, I don't want to. No spoilers. No spoilers.
Yeah, and I mean, we can talk spoilers if we need to. Everyone knows what happened to him in the show, so his character obviously died from the stories.
Yeah, I would want him to be in it because I enjoyed his performance a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there was a 4-year gap in the film, so we could obviously see him in some of those scenes because there was a 4-year jump between young Tony and the actor that played young Tony. We actually interviewed Matteo Russo, who played the young Artie Bucco just a couple days ago, and he has aspirations of coming back. Just adventures of him and young Tony would be exciting. So, I mean, the world is endless of what they can do.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? That we have this now that you can go back. A show can be so successful, and then they decide, hey, we should make a movie or a series about what happened before that show even began, and it becomes like a life's work for somebody like Chase. I think that's great. That's really cool.
One question that actually I wanted to ask you, and this is just more of a selfish question. So, Analyze That is one of my all-time favorite movies, and there was actually a lot of Sopranos cast in there, and a scene. It's so simple, and it might not even be that funny to some people, but the scene where Ben Sobel, Billy Crystal's leaving the supermarket. He's like taking a pill, and then the limo comes up, and it's your character that comes out, and you're like, get in the car, and he's just like, what are we going to prom? It's so simple, but it's like, like I just that scene just cracks me up, and then you're forcing him to get in, and then the scene where the guy that's holding him by the nuts, and you and William DeMeo are just kind of standing back. Just those two scenes are just hilarious.
Well, I'll tell you, what's funny about that? So I'm nervous at that point. I'm a young actor. I wasn't really all that young, but you're working with Billy Crystal and De Niro. It's this big film, and he's trying to make space for a little improvisation there. And I just, it goes right over my head because I just know what I have to do, and I'm just trying to do it, And after we get into the limo and it drives away, after they yell cut, he's like, let's play there a little. I'm like, yeah, and we go back and we do, and I keep doing the same thing. And he's trying to play and create like this moment for some improvisation that I just wasn't relaxed enough to enter, I guess, it's funny. You learn,
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that scene is, again, so simple, and he just responds, you're like, get in the car. And he's like, what are we going to prom? It's just so simple, but just so funny.
Yeah, he's a comic genius, that guy. He knows how to make it work.
And both Analyze This and That were directed by the late Harold Ramis, Egon from Ghostbusters, and we're actually about to get a Ghostbusters 3 that's heavily centered around his character. Just really curious, what's it like? I know he's phenomenal as an actor and hilarious, but what's he like as a director?
He was one of the sweetest, nicest people you can imagine. I mean, I didn't see him raise an eyebrow, no stress. I remember one day he was like, I mean, we're making a movie. You know, like what's there to get bent out of shape about? You know, we're making a movie. This is great. Look what we get to do. You know, and just very calm the first audition I had with him, you know, I go in all serious. I actually auditioned for the role that Ray Franza had, which was like sort of my boss.
Yeah.
But I was too young for the part. And I'll tell you a funny story. I flew to Los Angeles to screen test for a television show. And before the screen test, the writer and the showrunner and the director come in. They're like, listen, you're the guy. This is yours. Just go in and take it. Like, you're our guy. Worst thing they could have ever said to me. I go in to do the screen test and I completely shit the bed. And I remember leaving. I was supposed to leave Los Angeles the next day. But I was so like broken up over the whole, you know, screw up that I literally went back to the hotel, changed my flight to leave that night. My manager calls me up. She's like, tell me what's going on. You know, and I tell her, and I'm like, I'm coming home tonight. She's like, good. I was going to tell you, you have to come home tonight. And I'm like, why? She goes, well, I don't know what you have to do to pull yourself together, but between now and the morning, you better, because tomorrow you're going in with De Niro and Ramis. Oh, wow. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you got a call back and you're going in with those guys. So you better pull it together, kid. And the next day I landed, you know, went home, showered, got dressed, and went to this callback, which again was a mixed match scenario, but this time with Robert De Niro in the room with us. And I ended up getting it. But the first time I went in with Harold, you know, he's this really laid back, sweet guy, and I come in, I'm all serious because of what the role is, you know. And again, I was young, and I do the audition, and he starts, when I'm done, he's laughing. And he's like, where are you from? You know, he starts asking me questions. And he's like, all right, I'll be seeing you again. Go ahead, get out of here. And, you know, that's all she wrote. But it was a great opportunity and a great experience.
No, definitely. I mean, I love Analyze That. And a part of me is just hoping that somehow, somewhere we can get a third one. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough without Harold Ramis, because he wrote, if I'm not mistaken, on top of directing the film. But part of me just hopes that we can get a third one. This is a movie that I don't think your character got killed in this movie, right? So there's a chance that we can get you in the third, or did you?
Chance I could show up again. Yeah.
Awesome. And I know I meant, because in your scene there, you were right there with Will DeMeo, who's one of the creators of Gravesend, which is season 2 about to come on. And I think, aren't you in season 2 as well?
I am. I'm going back at the end of the month. Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a star-studded cast. I mean everybody's in it. I mean Martin Cove from Cobra Kai's in it. I mean just a bunch of.
He got everybody now. He got a whole bunch of people. Yeah. Awesome. I'll tell you, his determination is amazing. Like he gets things done. God bless him. You know.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited. I mean, definitely want to see season 2 of Gravesend. Are you able to share some of your upcoming projects?
Well, I just have that film Worth that premiered on Netflix September 3rd. It's with Michael Keaton. That was a wonderful opportunity as well. Probably my best role. It's about 9/11 and Kenneth Feinberg, who's in charge of the Victim Relief Fund. I just finished a film called Jersey Bread, which I'm the lead, which also has a lot of, you know, the usual suspects in it. First time writer director Greg Russo, but I worked with Gino Caffarelli, Jeremy Luke, Sonny Marinelli, Ava Paloma, and Al Linea, and a bunch of other people are in the film. And
love Al.
I have high hopes for it. Yeah, it should be fun. And what else am I doing? I have a couple of writing projects of my own that are moving forward. A television series I wrote that we just attached 2 actors to, showrunner and everything we're about to go out with. And I have a film that is financed, but we just lost our director. And it's this business, man. You really have to have thick skin. You know, you have to have the stomach for it. It takes so long sometimes to get things done. But, you know, it's a passion, right?
Are you able to share any, just anything on the plot of the TV show, or is it still kind of under wraps that you wrote?
You know, with stuff like that, I don't like, I mean, I wish I could tell you who the two actors were because it's exciting, but at the same time, like at this point, I really can't say anything. And as far as like the plot goes, and I'll just tell you, it's Staten Island, 1985.
Ooh, it's a crazy
Yeah.
time. That's a crazy
It was a
time.
very interesting time. A lot of stuff happening in the world. Yeah.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
good it's a good cliffhanger. So once there's a little more details that are announced, it's an excuse to get you back for round.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And also too, I love just kind of closing off with asking the actors, what shows are you guys binge watching when you guys aren't working, when you guys are at home? What are you guys binge watching nowadays?
A strange thing happened to me during the pandemic. I kind of stopped watching television and films, and I don't know why that is. Especially because I write. So it's always great to watch good writing, even bad, because then you know the difference, right? My favorite show and my most recent binge was Gomorrah. And I am very anxiously awaiting the 5th season. I think it's a fantastic show and I love the cast. And I also love the Durrells in Corfu because I'm a huge Lawrence Durrell fan. He's like my idol as a writer, and I was just in Corfu for a couple of weeks back in July. So that show to me is great. It certainly isn't the same, it's not the same audience that would go watch Gomorrah or Sopranos, but I love it.
Yeah, Gomorrah, I've been hearing a lot of great things about. I actually watched the first episode just because I was just hearing about how great the reviews are. I'm not caught up with the entire show, but I watched the first episode and thought it was great. I'm trying to allocate some time to kind of get into it, but because I need something to kind of get me back into that life. And because The Many Saints is great, but it's a film. After you watch it, you can only rewatch it so many times. But I've been hearing good things about it, and I was impressed with the first episode that I saw.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Even the structuring of the episodes, and and it's created by Roberto Saviano, who wrote the book, and they did that film back in, I forget what year, maybe 2000, was it 2004 or 2008? And yeah, I mean, I love it. I think it's really, really well done.
Amazing. So looks like we got something to touch on. Once we get some more details on your show, we're definitely going to bring you back. I can keep asking you questions for hours, and I just love just picking your brain. Some of these classic shows that you were in, and some of the shows and movies that you're slated to come out over the next year or so. Just Chris, I want to thank you for joining on. Love you as an actor, man, and was just so excited to have you on, and just want to thank you for joining MovieJunk today.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And it's my pleasure. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Chris. Talk to you soon.
Talk soon. Take care.